Reddit, what was the please stop school presentation that you witnessed? Was in a video/filmmaking class in high school. One group of guys did a parody of those Gatorade commercials where the athlete's sweat is colored like Gatorade but it was a sweaty guy jerking off. Apparently there was a Gatorade cum shot but the teacher just turned that shit off immediately before it got that far. I never thought I would read the words Gatorade cum shot together with my own two eyes in my entire life, yet here I am. It's a dope cat punk band name though. Is that a thing, or did you just somehow royally fuck up NAACP? For 8th grade talent show, two girls sang the Mr. Bladell song. Mr. Bladell was a good-looking, recently college-graduated teacher, that basically was about how cute they thought he was. Even then, it was incredibly uncomfortable and I remember looking at the teacher's face and he didn't seem very amused. God, I would hate to be that teacher. I remember in high school one young and cool English teacher had to stop teaching English to seniors because they were so obviously obsessed with him. It was gross and uncomfortable. I had a teacher that was basically the opposite. Girls were crazy about him. I had bad family issues and ended up on the streets. He actually came to see me one day, and offered to let me stay at his home. I was really creeped out. I was 15 at the time. Then 3 years later, I find out he was forced to resign for sleeping with multiple students. Not a literal presentation really, but we had an assembly in high school where the students that helped plan homecoming would announce the nominations for homecoming court. It always had a cute little theme and like a short skit involved. Well, at one point the audio they were using as the cue for the skit failed. They just kind of paused for technical difficulties, but this one girl from the planning committee started singing a random Disney song a cappella while improvising a dance to go along with it, I guess as a distraction from them trying to fix the audio. She kept trying to get people to join in with her, but nobody did, and she eventually just kind of trailed off mid-song and started pouting that nobody would sing with her. Then once they got the audio fixed for the skit she pouted and snapped the way through the rest of her lines, which made everything even more uncomfortable. The other famous one was when a girl in our class running for student government referenced a hashtag that she was trying to make popular during her campaign speech to the whole school. The hashtag was something catchy about her having a big ass. There was a genuine collective yikes from the crowd when she said it. I don't think she got elected. The girl who gave the valedictorian speech at my high school graduation ended it with "What's cooler than being cool? Ice cold." In high school a student died in a car accident where she was driving. There was no record that stated she was distracted by her phone or anything, but the school decided to have an assembly shortly after talking about distracted driving and using her as an example. Telling the whole school she'd be alive if she was doing what she was supposed to. That's fucked. This is really late to the game but I experienced something similar. I was in the Air Force and a guy that got to tech school around the same time as a big group of us was up late studying, not drinking, and his buddy called him for a ride home because buddy was drunk. Dude got in his car to get him and didn't put on his seatbelt, got in an accident, and died. We then, during his memorial type thing, got a lecture about wearing a seatbelt at all times in a car and how his wife might not get his life insurance now since he wasn't wearing his. It almost turned into basically blaming him for dying. Most of us were young 20s experiencing our first death of a friend. It was really tone deaf and insensitive. For a public speaking class in college, we had to give a persuasive speech. One kid did his speech about porn. If he had had a legitimate argument, like sex work is real work, or porn has a negative effect on a person's self-image, the speech would have been fine. We were all mature adults. But all he did was list the different kinds of porn he liked, in detail, with visual aids. The professor stopped him after a few minutes, and asked him to explain what he wanted to persuade the audience about. He answered, "Porn is good. You can't write all that and not tell us his favorite type of porn. I'm sure there's more that I'm forgetting, but I remember that he was into cartoon porn, but not hentai. I remember that his example was a Scooby-Doo porn parody, and Asian porn. I remember that he showed a bunch of tweets from Mesa Akira. When you said visual aids, like did he actually have Scooby-Doo porn fan art up?" The one where my school got ripped off by paying a guy who claimed to be on SpongeBob to come talk to us about drugs. He did look kind of like Tom Kenny, I guess. I was also thinking backward about the question. I thought op meant when did the school have to tell everyone to quit doing something? For me it was banning Pokemon cards in 1998 because toddlers were brawling over that first edition Charizard. That is so specific and also happened at my elementary school the exact same year. Pretty sure every elementary school across the globe was having secret fight clubs for Charizard, except r/kids very fucking stupid and they weren't secret at all. I was in a Japanese film class for a credit I needed, and the final project was some open-ended paper where you got to choose the topic, and our Japanese-born teacher told us some story about a creepy neckbeard who did his on Japanese porn and how no one should do anything like that. Anyways, on the day it was due, the creepiest neckbeard stereotype I've ever seen, who was in my class, presented his long-ass cringe presentation on Japanese porn in the class that no one wanted to hear, already knowing the teacher has seen this shit before and wasn't about it at all. Edit. Just to clarify, his main talking point was about how Japanese people have a greater appreciation for big boobs than Americans. It wasn't some academic treatise on sexual norms or gender expectations in porn or anything. In a class about geography with a mix of regional culture my freshman year of college, the professor gave a presentation on different types of Japanese art, such as paintings, sculptures, pottery, and whatnot. At the end of the presentation, she turned to the class of 80+ students and said, "What other kinds of Japanese art do you guys know about?" Someone from the very back of the room, a row behind me, shouted out hentai. For some reason, a number of students groaned quietly to themselves, thinking this couldn't end well, but the professor had no clue what hentai was. She asked him to explain, and the guy just stuttered out, it's like anime, I think." So the professor says, pretty cheerfully, "Let's look up some examples." At this point, anyone who knows what hentai is has already forsaken life and is actively trying to will themselves into the void, myself included, as she goes to the computer connected to the massive projector screen and pulls up her internet browser. Thank God that she had a tab already open to another video she wanted to show us, and either realized we didn't have time to get off track, or got immediately distracted by it and forgot her quest entirely. Class resumed as normal. That guy got away with it, and most of us returned to the typical dissociating we did in that class. I don't know if that professor really didn't know what hentai was. She did seem kind of innocent in regards to internet horrors, or was just feigning ignorance to make us sweat. I sometimes wonder, if the former, if she looked it up later and realized how awkward that class could have been. During nursing school, a guy decided to use My Little Pony figures as props to a seminar room of about 100 people. He told the class that he would refer to himself as his pony name for the duration. Don't remember what it was. Also, not that this is relevant, but he wore a black leather trench coat and it was pretty hot in the room, yet he never took it off. Cringe. Edit. He wasn't a student, he came in to do a talk about epilepsy and his experience with healthcare. We got to review them at the end and I gave him a good score because he actually had a lot of interesting things to say about his condition, even if it was cringy. How does a brony survive nursing school? I've seen the culture that evolves in the classes. It's super preppy. They would be eaten alive. He wasn't a student, he came in to do a talk. Frequently we get random people in to talk about their illness or experience in healthcare. His talk was about epilepsy. Opioid awareness, literally a few months ago. Started with them blasting the entirety of the Disturbed cover of The Sound of Silence, while a slideshow of images containing sad stock photos with a watermark all over, random shots of really dark nighttime photos, and tons of poorly photoshopped drug images trudged on ever so slowly. Then, two women told us the harrowing stories of how their sons died of opioid overdoses. Incredibly emotional, several people cried. Real downer, basically. Then, a DEA agent comes up and tries to act all bad cop. He calls us, an assembly of high school students, grades 9 to 12, fucking morons. The principal was not pleased. He is then followed by a nurse who was there to tell us the physical effects of opioid addiction and withdrawals and all that, and she did talk about that. But the whole time she was running around practically screaming jokes and doing shitty over-the-top gags trying to be the comic relief. In an opioid assembly, where two women shared the stories of how their children died. What the fuck was she doing being that loud and crazy? Everyone came out of the whole thing with a general attitude of yeah, fuck opioids, but also fuck that whole presentation. Does this happen in every school? Lamau, pretty much this exact thing happened in my health class, but instead of one presentation it was like 4 presentations split into different days of the school week. When it was prom season my senior year, they gathered all the seniors for a presentation on drunk driving that showed graphic, gory videos of car crashes from drunk driving. The only problem is that they unironically paired it with that song that goes "How could this happen to me?" The teachers were all staring daggers at us because we were all barely containing our laughter. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you have a similar story, share it in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe for more. Have a great day, or night.